The intersection is lined with our men. They've surrounded our village with their SWAT team. Look at the consequences of your arrogance. Come on, you're so arrogant. Let's see what the police cars can do. Take a look. Who told you to come and be so arrogant? Damn you guys, did you come here to get yourself kicked in the pants? What a relief. The government officials in Anlong sent these public security officers to beat up the common people. You see, these people are feeding on the state, doing the bidding for the state, and they failed, haven't they? The footage you saw took place in January 2024. The exact date is uncertain. Online sources said it happened on January 8th in a village in Guizhou Province of southwest China, a Miao village. The Miao are a minority ethnic group in China with an ancient history. Not long ago, an elderly man in the village passed away due to illness. The family brought his ashes back after cremation, intending to bury him in the village because they couldn't afford the cemetery fees, which were as high as tens of thousands of yuan. However, the local government forbade them to do so, claiming that all those who passed away must be buried in the government-designated cemetery, or else they would be breaking the law. Why does the government have to enforce this? It's to generate revenue. We'll talk about how the government uses the cemetery to make a fortune later. First, let's look at the village's reaction. In the early hours of the morning, the local government mobilized a team of several hundred people, including SWAT police and government officials. Armed with shields, pitchforks, and other weapons, they forced their way into the village. What was the purpose of this large group? To rob the ashes of the deceased. Most likely, they thought it would be like their previous missions carried out, a mere formality, and then they would go back to celebrate their victory. This is because all over China, officials and police are usually successful in dealing with challenged households who are forced to be demolished and relocated, or with petitioners who want to escape their localities to provincial capitals or the capital city, Beijing. Occasionally, there are a few who dare to put up resistance, but because of the disparity in strength, they will hardly become the government's opponents. So on this day, as usual, the special police use violence against the disobedient villagers, which to them is the most effective means. However, this time was different. Instead of making the villagers yield, the actions of the SWAT team infuriated the villagers. They attacked the SWAT team members with stones, bricks, sticks, slingshots, and whatever else they could use. The SWAT team had never experienced it before and were soon scared out of their wits, running away and hiding. However, there was no way to escape from the Miao village as it was hidden deep in the mountains. Just like what the villager said earlier, the SWAT team was completely besieged. Meanwhile, the village was encircled by angry villagers. Do you have your papers? Let's talk, okay? Hand over your ID card. If you don't have one, we'll go to war. The villagers blocked all the exits of the village and brought their slingshots to fight with the police. They also smashed all the vehicles coming into the village.
Let's not let these SWAT police get away with it. They're just a bunch of party officials. They're just like gangsters.
Everybody, make sure you have your rubber guns. They have guns, we have rubber guns. The SWAT team chose to surrender, handing over the shields, pitchforks, and other weapons they carried, and became prisoners of the villagers. On the next morning, after apologizing and pledging to the villagers, the SWAT officers and government civil servants left the Miao village with the villagers' consent. They look silent and expressionless. Okay, apologize to everyone. Don't do this again. If you come here next time, you'll be dead. Since all the vehicles were smashed, the SWAT team and the officials could only leave the village on foot. The walk wasn't long, but it should have been extremely long for them. The masks were really useful for them to hide their looks. Even with the masks covering them, one could tell that these usually arrogant and domineering groups no longer had the usual air on their faces. Walking along with their heads down, they didn't say a word, as if trying to get out of there in a hurry.
Oh, there's a whole gang of bandits.
Damn it, who's not afraid to die? Come again next time to terrorize us people.
These are the government's lackeys. Look at them all. So sad. They're all dogs of the government. Whenever they can gain something, they pounce on it. They terrorize people everywhere. We, the common people, are already poor, and they come to pest us. If we are finished, let's finish together.
They are all a bunch of pigs. This is a gang of bandits, a gang of traitors. You take off your masks. Take off your masks, traitors.
The bandits. They're pushed back by the people.
On the high ground by the roadside, villagers stood and gave the SWAT team and government officials all the swear words and curses they knew in their lives. Take the masks off. Hundreds of them were sent here, ready to beat up us common people. Finally, the common people won. I hope everyone who sees this video will spread it everywhere. I hope everyone in the state who saw this video will help us share the video. Share it with the central government. It's finally a win.
They look like gangsters. They really are gangsters. Will you come back? You're still afraid of losing your life, aren't you? Damn you, you're vicious. Look, open your eyes and have a look. Don't you close your eyes. Look up and see.
In response, many overseas Chinese netizens praised the Miao villagers. They wrote, "Ethnic minorities really have character, sticking together and doing it. It's really over the top. The people show their anger and hatred for them. I'm in tears watching it, for all our suffering and kind-hearted people." Some netizens also cautioned, the villagers should be careful. 1, the communists would seek revenge later, and 2, the cornered communists would come back to kill. After all, this time they just didn't expect it and didn't carry any hot weapons. It'll be troublesome when they enter the mountains again. Why is the Miao ethnic group so angry with the SWAT team for entering the village to snatch the ashes? China has a long history of filial piety culture. When an elderly person passes away in the family, friends and relatives, especially the family members, are usually returning home to mourn. It's difficult for Chinese families to accept the snatching of ashes at a time when the family is grieving, and this is the time when family cohesion is at its strongest. The Chinese government promotes public cemeteries and even forces villagers in the mountains to comply. It's not because of environmental protection or farmland preservation. Our channel produced an episode on the profiteering of cemeteries in China. Let's take a look at the clip. Since 2003, the funeral industry has been on the list of China's top 10 most profitable industries several times. Prices for cemeteries continue to rise. They have become more profitable than real estate. In a well-known Chinese movie, If You Are the One, the protagonist is pitched to buy a cemetery when he's on a blind date. The salesman says that a plot of land that costs 30,000 RMB now will go up tenfold in a few years. This isn't a drama, but a reality in China today. The Chinese media, Time Weekly, published a report in April 2022 that in a first-tier city like Shanghai, a cemetery in Pudongnu area costs about 40,000 per square meter at least, and it's not even the final price.
In the blink of an eye, more than a decade had passed and the price of the same type of grave in the same cemetery had risen past 24,000 US dollars per square meter, an increase of more than 300%, which made Li very grateful to her parents. By 2010, provinces and municipalities strictly restricted the purchase of graves without death or cremation certificates, in accordance with the measures for the management of cemeteries issued by the Chinese State Council. With the exception of last century, the purchaser of a grave space in this century has only the right to lease use, not ownership, and transfer is illegal. These regulations have curbed the practice of tomb flipping. However, controlling tomb flipping by individual investors doesn't affect the fortunes of CCP-related establishments. Fushu Yuan and other funeral operators in China have the backing of the Ministry of Civil Affairs and other government agencies, all of whom have interests involved. It is with their help that these funeral operators are able to monopolize cemetery resources, thus make high profits. Under such conditions, how can the profiteering of this industry actually be eliminated?
So what kind of ethnic minority is the Miao in Chinese history? It can be said that bravery and fierceness are indeed part of the genes of this ethnic group. The Miao are an ancient ethnic group with a long history in China. In ancient times, Chih was honored as the founder of the Miao people. He was also known as the king of the Miao. Legend has it that thousands of years ago, Chih was one of the three great patriarchs, along with the Yin Emperor and Yellow Emperor. Each of these three tribes occupied a part of China. Chih had horns on his head and was extremely powerful in battle. In order to curb his expansion, the Yellow Emperor and the Yin Emperor decided to join forces. Eventually, Chih was defeated. His tribe migrated and eventually came to the mountains of southwest China. Guizhou Province has also become the largest gathering place of Miao ethnic people in the world. The province is predominantly mountainous. The mountains are beautiful, so is the water. The Miao ethnic people have their own unique style of dress, songs, and dances. Look, there is a 100-meter high peak on this big mountain surrounded by cliffs on all sides. It's divided into two on the top with a temple on each side connected by a bridge. Later generations have no idea how they were constructed. Guizhou is one of the poorest and most backward places in China. It is the only province in China with no plains. Many parts of the mountains are difficult to access. In the process of China becoming the world's factory, such a province loses at the starting line, from the very beginning. Because of the inconvenient transportation, the cost of transportation is prohibitively high. Shortcomings of the CCP system are also more pronounced in this province. In 2008, a large-scale protest in Guizhou shook China and the overseas Chinese community, known as the Wang'an Incident. Wang'an is a local county. In late June 2008, a local middle school girl was suspected to have been violated and murdered by a child of a high-ranking local official. The police investigated and concluded that it was the girl that threw herself into a river, and the family was forced to bury the body. The family petitioned in front of the Public Security Bureau, PSB. When the girl's uncle went to the PSB to inquire about the situation, he was beaten with serious injuries and passed away shortly thereafter. It infuriated the local community. On the afternoon of June 28, 2008, more than 30,000 people in Wang'an County, Guizhou Province stormed the county government buildings and Public Security Bureau, smashing and burning. 2 police vehicles parked in front of the Public Security building were lifted inside and set on fire. The building caught fire immediately. All the police fled to the rooftop, while the armed police used tear gas to disperse the protesters. At that time, news spread quickly on various online platforms in mainland China. After the incident, the authorities mobilized more than 1,500 riot police from out of town to suppress the public and conducted a large-scale manhunt. The police opened fire and used tear gas canisters and high-voltage electric batons in their crackdown, resulting in the arrest of at least 200 people, several deaths, and more than 150 injuries. The incident resulted in the removal of the local CCP county party secretary and county chief. 6 months later, however, the former county party secretary who was removed from all party and government positions was found to have taken up a position as deputy director of the finance bureau of a state in the same province. The riot was later labeled by the authorities as a vicious social event, manipulated by the triads. It is not yet known what the consequences of the capture of hundreds of police officers will be, but perhaps poverty has left people with nothing to lose, thus making the locals fearless. In any case, the Miao people's fight against tyranny has brought a touch of color to today's China. China's underclass people are suffering too much, and the space for them to live is getting squeezed more and more. Freedom of any kind is something remote and beyond. In rural areas in the desert, this senior living in Xinjiang was told by police to apologize publicly for making a careless remark about food prices being too expensive.
I'm sorry. A while ago, I said that prices in Xinjiang were high and that even the god of wealth would have to take out a loan to cover his expenses. In fact, prices in Xinjiang aren't high at all. I get 3,000 RMB per month, and I can't even spend it all.
In the city, some neighborhoods have anti-riot squads stationed. They are not SWAT police or regular police officers. They are staff of the property company, well equipped to deal with the residents. When the Chinese Communist government is faced with social crises, it will shout the slogan, "Stability overrides everything." It sounds reasonable, and many Chinese people actually believe it. In reality, the biggest destabilizing factor in China is from the CCP regime itself. Most of the disasters and plights happened in China are directly or indirectly caused by the CCP's political movements and various kinds of upheavals. The stability referred to by this red regime is not the stability of the work and life of ordinary Chinese, but the stability of its ruling position. As an old Chinese saying goes, water can carry a boat, and it can also capsize it. The stability of a boat has to follow the trend of the water. How can one rely on forcible suppression to calm the eddies and turbulence of the water? The Miao people who took the SWAT team prisoner and their angry curses against the officials and the police are a force to be reckoned with. We believe that only by removing the biggest destabilizing factor, the CCP, can Chinese people ultimately achieve fundamental stability of their living environment. Finally, let's take a look at what this professor said. As we introduced in previous episodes, Chinese people sometimes express their views of the CCP in alternative ways. The so-called low-grade red, high-grade black, which means to praise the CCP in a way that expresses something contrary to what is said on the surface. We're not sure if this professor who teaches openly in the classroom falls into that category. Our audience can judge for themselves.